don't kill the child. Don't kill the child, because if you do, people will not forget. They will not forgive. We will hunt you down, and we will put you to death.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I'm Lauren.
I am Ken.
And this is Paradise After Dark.
Dark.
Paradise After Dark is an independent podcast covering true crime,
unsolved mysteries,
missing people,
urban legends, and the dark side of the Sunshine State.
If you would like to support the show and get a bunch of extra Paradise After Dark content, please sign up for our Patreon at patreon.com/Palmahawk Media. That's PALAMAHAWK Media.
And be sure to check out our website at paradiseafterdark.com for all that cool Paradise After Dark swag.
Yep. On our website, you'll find links to all of our episodes, our mailing list, our social medias, and obviously our Patreon.
Yes, and we also have a virtual tip jar there, so you can stop in, drop a tip, and we'll give you a shout out on the show. And as a matter of fact,
speaking of shout outs on the show,
we have a few shout outs because there's some wonderful, amazing, magnificent, awesome people that did drop by the website and dropped a couple of coins in our tip jar. And we want to say thank you. So special thank you to Amy and Catherine and Ashley. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much for supporting the show.
And we got some other news too. We got another friend that joined the shit show.
Oh yes, we have a new patron, Melissa. Welcome. Welcome to our Patreon. I don't know if you joined because of Paradise After Dark or True Crime Headlines, but as I said on True Crime Headlines, you're going to get a shout out on both shows.
Absolutely.
So,
and
Melissa, thank you for supporting the show. And Trish from Publix, I actually got to meet her this past week.
In traffic.
We ran into Trish from Publix in traffic. So now she's going to be Trish from Publix, also in traffic.
I was very jealous because her Jeep is way cooler than mine.
Oh my God, she drives a badass Jeep.
That thing was amazing. I'm driving this old beat up Jeep that's my work Jeep, and I'm like, shit.
And one more quick shout out. We got a lovely email from Haley from Cape Coral. She sent us some really kind words, and it really kind of made my day to get that email. So thank you so much, Haley, for listening to the show, and thank you so much for your email.
And tonight's show, before we get started, I just want to warn everybody, does involve a heinous crime against a young 9-year-old boy. So, Lauren, with that being said, you want to kind of get into this?
Yep. We are going to be talking about the story of Jimmy Ryce. On September 11th, 1995, 9-year-old Jimmy Ryce, whose full name was Samuel James Ryce, disappeared after a school bus dropped him off near his home in the Redlands area, a rural area south of Miami-Dade County. Jimmy was a student in the gifted program at Naranja Elementary School in South Dade. He was dropped off with 10 other classmates not far from his home. At the time of his disappearance, he weighed 70 pounds, had reddish-brown hair and blue eyes. He aspired to be a Major League Baseball player.
Yeah, and just to kind of give you guys some idea of when Lauren said not far from their home, they actually called it 5 blocks from home, but keep in mind that these are estate homes. So he was actually only 4 houses away from his house. But because of the vast amount of property, they had these big estate homes.
Right.
He wasn't far, because in some cases I read where it said he was 5 blocks. Some I said he was close to home, but then
some said 4 houses.
Exactly.
That's why I just said not far from his home, because it can get confusing.
Well, and this is the Homestead area. So this is, Miami-Dade. So we're in the Homestead area, and this is back in 1995. So that takes us back to another case in Homestead that we covered back in episode 50, I think it was.
That's right. Adam Walsh.
Exactly.
Same area.
There's a few references, and I'm probably going to bring them up because in researching this, I found myself in that thought process. So
this case really did many, many times while I was researching. I kept picturing that photo of Adam Walsh with his little baseball bat. It just kept bringing me back to that.
Well,
So
sadly, there's a few pictures of Jimmy Rice with that same, not the same bat, same hat, but he was with a baseball bat, with the hat. And it really does take you back and put you in that spot where it's like all the research we did there. And we went, 2 episodes on that. Plus we spoke to a gentleman who witnessed some of the stuff that was
right,
there.
exactly.
So anyway, this case really gets a hold of you when you start looking into it and researching it for sure. So Jimmy's parents, now they had been on vacation when he disappeared, and a neighbor's 20-year-old son was actually looking after Jimmy in the house while they were gone. And they became alarmed when Jimmy didn't show up for his 4 p.m. piano lesson. Now Jimmy's mother, Claudine, she recalled that a couple weeks earlier, a man had actually stopped Jimmy and asked him for directions. So when Jimmy told her about this and she learned of it, she contacted the school and asked that Jimmy be dropped off right in front of the family's 3.5-acre compound. Now, because the bus had to drive right by it to get to the normal stop, this would have been a good idea. Okay, it's got to go right by my house.
Yeah, it would have been easy for the bus to just stop in front of his house and let him off.
But sadly, at the time that Jimmy disappeared, the school was still processing this request that Claudine had made. Now, meanwhile, Claudine spoke with Jimmy about stranger danger and made him promise that if anyone tried to stop him, he would drop his backpack and run. He would not have gotten into a car on his own, Claudine said. You would have to pick him up and throw him in the back like a sack. Now, the backpack concept is smart. And do you know why it's smart?
Why?
She said, drop your backpack because that way we will know that you've been taken or you're gone. So that was the whole point of drop the backpack. So if we find your backpack, we'll know. Because remember, I mean, Jimmy's IQ was elevated. He had a very high IQ for a kid.
He was very smart.
That was 9 years old, almost 10 years old. So drop your backpack. So that way we'll know you're gone. Then we know to start looking for you. But when they didn't find the backpack, it was very concerning. So we'll get into that.
By September 14th, 3 days later, hundreds of volunteers were searching for Jimmy, and the FBI got involved as well. Metro-Dade Fire Rescue set up a task force and command post at Redland Elementary School to coordinate the volunteer search teams. People scoured the area on foot, horseback, and all-terrain vehicles. 5 dogs were brought in. 2 dogs named Brandy and Aspen, who had just the year before searched for survivors and remains at the site of the Oklahoma City bombing. FBI divers also searched the vast canals and bodies of water in the area. In an article from the Miami Herald on September 14, 1995, Bill Baggett, a minister and friend of the Rice family, said, "The family feels that someone took him. They are a family in tears, but they have not given up hope for a safe return." A neighbor told the newspaper that Jimmy liked to play baseball and was scared of spiders. "Why does a child disappear?" asked neighbor Arlene Minderman, who also said she was not allowing her granddaughter out beyond the family yard until Jimmy's case was resolved. About 20 FBI agents stationed themselves at the Rice home that day. They interviewed Jimmy's parents, Donald and Claudine Rice, and even controlled the access gate to the property. "When it involves a child, we do become active in the investigation after a 24-hour period," said FBI spokeswoman Lucy Vanderhaar. "We initiate a kidnapping investigation and are working in conjunction with Metro-Dade Police, aggressively pursuing all leads we can to locate the whereabouts of Jimmy." FBI agents interviewed Jimmy's teachers, neighbors, friends, and family. They also looked throughout the house to make sure he wasn't taken from inside the home. They had no reason to believe that Jimmy got lost or ran away, but there was also no evidence of foul play. Jimmy was just gone.
And again, that's the backpack concern because he was instructed and Claudine, his mother, knew, look, you need to just drop your backpack and go so we know you're gone, but they don't find the backpack. She tells investigators this information and says, look, they had to have thrown him in the car because he would have dropped his backpack like I instructed him, but they don't find it. So now they're thinking, well, did he run away? Was he taken from the home, the family involved? I mean, there's so many questions that have to be asked.
Right.
So I do have one question when it pertains to the FBI. Is that still the case today or do you not know? Do they still get involved when there's a child missing after 24 hours or is it less time or?
I believe I can't speak for the actual protocol, but I believe that they usually do.
Okay. I know if it involves crossing state lines, it always does.
Yes.
Immediately, but I didn't know about the 24-hour thing. So I just had to ask a question because I'm not sure myself. I'm going to make a note here to look that up. Now, this little small community had never seen anything like this, and rightly so. They were all frightened. Well, the Rice family was polygraphed in the first few days, which I guess is customary.
Yes, they want to clear the family as quickly as possible.
And so on September 17th, a private group called Citizens Against Crime Incorporated and many anonymous donors established a $25,000 reward for information leading to Jimmy's whereabouts. At a press conference on that same day, the Metro-Dade Major Linda Blue announced that there was no indication that Jimmy was still in the area. So Jimmy's story also aired on America's Most Wanted the same evening. Now, that segment garnered about 6 tips that were worth checking into. This is where I really hit home when it came to the Adam Walsh case, because now you have John Walsh involved.
Right.
America's Most Wanted looking for this. So John Walsh gets pictures of this and he starts talking about this. This is close to home. A child I know Adam was a lot younger, but this is a child, the baseball. I mean, because the pictures and everything just kind of comes in. I can't imagine how disturbed this was for him when this was all going on. So anyway, I had to like, at that point when doing this, I had to kind of pause and then get back into it because it does kind of hit home when you start thinking about it, especially when it involves a child.
Right. Time continued to pass. Leads came in that went nowhere. Jimmy's name and photo were in every South Florida newspaper every day. There were candlelight and prayer vigils and more searches, but still no Jimmy. The search actually became massive and not just in Florida. After the segment on America's Most Wanted and also his photo on the popular morning show at the time, Regis and Kathy Lee, tips began to pour in from coast to coast. I have them, meaning tips, coming in from all over in a constant stream, Metro-Dade homicide detective Pat Diaz told the Miami Herald. Every lead is assigned a follow-up, no matter what. People don't realize the magnitude of this investigation, said spokeswoman Lieutenant Linda O'Brien. We're doing everything humanly possible to find this boy. But still no Jimmy.
Well, unfortunately, the waiting, praying, searching, and hope was all dashed 3 months later when Jimmy was finally found, but not the way anyone had hoped. Now, there was a man named Juan Carlos Chavez who was working for the Shinehouse family as a handyman on their farm. Now, he lived in a trailer on the property and was permitted to use their Ford pickup truck to run errands and do other work for the family. Now, as part of his duties on the farm, Chavez frequently cared for horses owned by the Shinehouse family, but they were housed on a property that was actually owned by David Santana. And there was another trailer on the property that was unoccupied. So there are 2 different properties he worked on, 2 different trailers, one Chavez lived in and one that was empty. Around the time of Jimmy's disappearance, Susan Shinehouse reported several items missing from their home, including a handgun and pieces of jewelry. Now, Shinehouse suspected Chavez after she consulted with a psychic, but had no evidence to support her suspicion. However, the psychic did tell her that the items that she was looking for that were missing would be found in a trailer. So, of course, she assumed it was Chavez.
I didn't know that.
Yep, she did.
I didn't know what the psychic actually said.
Yeah, she said that to look around a trailer, they're in a trailer somewhere. So the psychic said, look at the trailer. So, of course, Chavez living in a trailer on their farm instantly because she suspected him anyway, but, look in the trailer. So aided by a locksmith, Shinehouse entered Chavez's trailer and she found her handgun in that actual trailer. And she also discovered in the closet a book bag, which was partially open. And when looking inside the bag, she saw papers and books. Now, the papers and books and the work appeared to be in a child's handwriting, and she noticed the name Jimmy Ryce. She also observed his name on one of the books. And when Mrs. Shinehouse asked her son to look at the items, he also recognized the child's name from all over the media. And she reported her findings to the FBI on December 5th of 1995. And when Chavez returned to the Shinehouse residence at about 7:15 on the evening of December 6th, the following day, armed FBI agents quickly surrounded and secured him. So they kind of came in quick and secured him and obviously arrested him for obvious reasons.
Over the course of the interrogation, and after having been repeatedly advised of his Miranda rights and knowingly waiving them, Chavez provided several versions of his involvement in Jimmy's disappearance. As law enforcement officers engaged in a simultaneous investigation of Chavez's changing narratives, Chavez agreed to accompany officers on 2 occasions to visit the horse farm property and the Shine House property, where he showed them the location of the events he had recounted that had transpired. On those occasions, Chavez was asked to reveal where the boys' remains were located to permit Jimmy's family to have closure. After the physical evidence resulting from the simultaneous investigation totally discredited each version of events which Chavez had initially proposed, Chavez agreed to tell the truth.
Oh, finally.
However, Chavez explained that before he would disclose the location of Jimmy's remains, he wanted officers to guarantee that he would receive the death penalty. Officer Luis Estopinin advised Chavez that he could not guarantee that the death penalty would be imposed. However, Chavez continued to talk, asserting that the events would not have happened had he not been sexually battered by a relative in Cuba when he was a child.
Odd that he would want the death penalty.
Chavez proceeded to admit to the detectives that he had abducted Jimmy at gunpoint, traveled to the horse ranch, and sexually assaulted Jimmy before finally shooting him. Estopinin explained that the officers would need details from Chavez and requested permission to take a sworn statement. Chavez agreed to continue the questioning, and the detectives began to get the details about what had happened to Jimmy Ryce. Chavez said that he had observed 3 young children playing in water on his way home from Home Depot at approximately 3 p.m. that day. Some of the boys were wearing just their underwear, and, quote, as he saw the young boys wearing just their underwear, he took an interest in them. After observing the children, Chavez drove off but returned a short while later because he still had a mental picture of what happened, meaning that he saw the young boys in their underwear by the canal bank, and decided he wanted to take another look. And while this is occurring, he was driving on the avenue. He sees a young boy who later turns out to be Jimmy Ryce. Again, thinking about the young boys who were playing in the water at the canal. Jimmy was walking on the opposite side of the road, so Chavez drove the truck in front of Jimmy, got out and pointed his gun, the Shine House's stolen gun, actually, at Jimmy and forced him into the truck. He pushed Jimmy down onto the floorboard so no one would see him and proceeded to drive him back to the empty trailer on the horse property. Jimmy asked Chavez, "Why did you take me?" And Chavez responded, "Why do you think?" Chavez confessed to sexually assaulting and torturing Jimmy for 4 hours. After he was finished, he put Jimmy back into the truck and started to drive him back to where he picked him up, intending on dropping him off. But when they got there, Chavez saw the police and got scared, so he returned to the horse farm trailer with Jimmy. He said once inside the trailer, Jimmy was trembling and crying and asked, "What's going to happen to me? Are you going to kill me?" Chavez spoke to Jimmy in order to calm him down.
One thing I find very disturbing here is there's no record of any other crimes that Chavez had committed, at least in the United States, because he was a Cuban immigrant. He did come over here, I guess, by raft. So he came here, I don't want to say illegally, but he came here. He's an immigrant, and he has no record of any trouble at all in the United States. So to think that this is his first crime is Jimmy?
Probably not.
Is, but whether it is or not, it's just, it's scary to think that this is the one and only. And, now you have this young child who has been sexually molested, and he's been put in a truck almost back home and then brought back. It's sickening at this point, because actually at one point while they were holed up in the trailer, a helicopter flew over, and now this scared Chavez. And so he grabs a hold of Jimmy and holds Jimmy close to him to keep him from going out the door or near the windows, because he doesn't want Jimmy to alert anyone. Now, the helicopter kept circling, and eventually Chavez got up to peek out the window. So when he gets up, Jimmy decides to make a mad dash for the door. And Chavez said that he tried to reach up to Jimmy, but he got tangled on the floor of the bathroom. And at one point, he said he took out the revolver belonging to Mrs. Shinehouse, and he pointed the handgun in Jimmy's direction and fired one time. And sadly, this bullet hit Jimmy, and Jimmy collapsed right by the door. He said after he shot him, he turned Jimmy around and held him in his arms. Jimmy took one last breath, and he expressed that was the last thing Jimmy did. He made clear that Jimmy took the one last breath, so there was no suffering once he shot Jimmy.
Chavez described that to dispose of Jimmy's body, he found a metal barrel inside the trailer at the horse farm and placed Jimmy's body inside the barrel. He transported the barrel containing the body from the horse farm to the Shinehouse residence, where he removed the barrel and placed it in Chavez's disabled van, which was parked in the stable area. During the night and into the next morning, all he could think about was what he was going to do with Jimmy's body. 2 or 3 days later, Chavez attempted to use a backhoe on the Shinehouse property to dig a hole in which to bury Jimmy, but the machine did not operate properly. Chavez remained concerned, particularly when he noticed that the lid of the barrel which contained Jimmy's body had come off. He pulled Jimmy's body from the barrel onto a piece of plywood, and from there his remains fell to the ground. At that point, he went ahead and began to dismember Jimmy's body with the use of a tool. Chavez described the tool he used to dismember Jimmy's body and even drew a picture of the implement. He explained that it took him a while and he was becoming sick and vomiting.
I have no sympathy for him.
But then he completes it and he places 3 of Jimmy's parts into 3 planters. And once he fills all the planters with Jimmy's remains, he goes into the stable area where the building is located and locates some cement bags. With those cement bags, he seals the tops of the planters with cement.
Okay. So he's dismembered Jimmy's body and then put him into planters, separate planters, and filled them with concrete. Now, this is what we know. This is what he's telling investigators, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, as part of the investigation continues and getting all the information to basically slam this asshole, the investigation and crime scene technicians, everybody shows up, so they're going to start collecting evidence now. Now, Officer Michael Bird recovered the loaded handgun from Chavez's trailer, the one that he spoke about shooting Jimmy with. And Bird also found a poster in Chavez's trailer bearing the likeness of Jimmy Ryce, which he processed as evidence. A box of bullets containing live ammunition and 1 spent shell casing were also found in the trailer. Crime scene technician Elvi Magarajo testified that on December 8, 1995, he helped search and process the trailer on the horse and avocado farm. Now, he searched the trailer and found a tube of water-based lubricant on a shelf inside the trailer. Magarejo collected a sofa cushion and part of the wood floor of the trailer just inside the front door. Now, these items were packaged and transmitted to serology for processing. Magarejo also traveled to the Shinehouse property where he noticed the 3 concrete-filled planters and kind of became suspicious that they might contain a cadaver. Now, fingerprint technician William Miller identified Chavez's fingerprints on the handgun that was recovered from the trailer. And Dr. Roger Middleman, he's the chief medical examiner for the Dade Medical Examiner's Department, testified that on December 9th, he conducted an examination of the contents of the planters. Now, the cement in each planter encased the remains of what appeared to be a young boy.
Dr. Middleman described the clothing found on Jimmy's body. It was dressed in this t-shirt and had on jeans and underwear. There was 1 sneaker on, 1 sneaker off, and 1 sock on the body. The doctor testified that a body expands as it decomposes due to the breakdown of material and biological processes, causing gases to expand. This process could cause a body placed in a barrel to expand to the point that the lid would be forced off or open. This brings us back to remember we just said that Chavez got freaked out when the lid was off. The remains were significantly decomposed. Using dental records from Jimmy's family dentist, a forensic dentist testified that the comparison with the jaw and teeth of the body was so strong that the skeletal remains were positively identified as that of Jimmy Ryce. An X-ray of the body cavity revealed a flattened projectile jacket that lodged in the area of the heart and great vessels.
And assuming by that you mean the bullet.
Right.
So that part is kind of true where he did describe shooting Jimmy.
The bullet entered at the point where the right sixth rib is located, went upwards in the body through the lung and the heart, and exited the upper left chest. Based on the trajectory of the bullet, the gun would have been pointed slightly upward and below the individual who was shot. However, there's no evidence on the body which would demonstrate how far away the gun was when it was fired.
So in this point, we can kind of just be hopeful that it happened fast for Jimmy.
I believe it did happen fast for Jimmy because it pierced right through the heart.
Okay. Yeah, because that's basically what the medical examiner described. Now, on December 20th, 1995, Detective McColeman had transported a tool known as a bush hook, which had previously been impounded to the medical examiner's office. Dr. Middleman, who was asked to examine the bush hook to determine if it was cutting characteristics were consistent with the injuries inflicted on Jimmy's body. In other words, could it be used to cut Jimmy up, basically?
Yes.
The medical examiner noted that a number of the injuries inflicted on the body during dismemberment were consistent with having been made with this particular bush hook. Now, however, he also testified that it was possible that more than one instrument had been used. Now, just for the people that don't understand a bush hook,
I had to Google it to figure out what it was.
Well, it's basically, just picture a double-edged machete on the end of a long stick that's kind of hooked at the end. So if you have a machete that's basically double-sided and kind of hooked on the end.
That's kind of like the thing that the Grim Reaper carries.
Pretty much, but it's not so drastic. That's more of a sickle, but this is kind of a small hook. It's for like going out and you basically just chop down the grass.
Right. Okay, gotcha.
So, and that's basically, you're not cutting anything. You're just chopping at this point.
Firearms examiner Thomas Quick of the Metro-Dade Police Department Crime Laboratory testified that a .38 caliber Taurus Model 85 revolver was submitted for his examination after it had been processed by the fingerprint section. He also received one aluminum jacket from a projectile recovered from the body of the victim and two .38 caliber casings, a projectile identified as having come from a red bullet box and a casing that had been fired from the firearm. The two empty .38 caliber shells casings found in Chavez's trailer were fired from the .38 recovered from the trailer. Quirk testified that the manufacture of the barrel and the rifling process provided microscopic differences which are transferred to the bullet during firing and which repeat, similar to a fingerprint. Also, the projectile jacket recovered by the medical examiner and the lead core, the fatal bullet, were positively identified as having been fired by the gun recovered from Chavez's trailer. My conclusion is that this bullet was fired in this weapon to the exclusion of all other weapons in the world. This is the gun that fired the bullet.
That is a pretty definitive answer.
Correct.
That's one thing to understand when you're in forensics because there's so many details to every little aspect. So every little thing, whether it be a knife, it's a stick, it's a baseball bat. There's so many little things about each particular item that basically investigators, when they examine these things, these guys are expert at basically identifying which item was actually used. Okay, this wasn't used because it didn't have this. It's amazing. And the markings of a bullet that's been fired, that's solved so many cases. And so basically he's saying this, there's no doubt, is the bullet that came out of this gun that was used by Chavez to kill Jimmy.
Yep. No question there.
No question. In the fall of 1998, Juan Carlos Chavez was convicted of kidnapping, sexual battery, and capital murder. He was sentenced to death. Now, the Florida Supreme Court affirmed his conviction and sentenced on November 21st, 2002. In July of 2004, Chavez filed a motion for post-conviction relief alleging ineffective assistance to counsel. The motion was amended in May of 2005 and was heard in Miami-Dade Circuit Court January 9, 2007. Wait a minute. So suddenly we don't want to be put to death anymore?
I guess not.
Amazing, Dick. Now, the Circuit Court judge denied this motion on March 8th of 2007. So on May 23rd, of 2007, Chavez appealed the denial to the Florida Supreme Court, filing a petition for habeas corpus at the same time. The court affirmed that the circuit court's order and denied the petition on June 25, 2009. So to continue the fight,
the United States Supreme Court denied certiorari. On April 17, 2012, Chavez filed a successful motion for post-conviction relief under the Florida Rule of Criminal Procedure 3.850. The circuit court denied the motion on June 13, 2012.
Good, because following that, on July 20th of 2012, Chavez appealed the denial to the Florida Supreme Court, which affirmed the denial on October 11, 2013, basically saying, sorry, dude, you're done.
On January 2, 2014, Florida Governor Rick Scott signed Chavez's death warrant. Chavez, age 46, was executed by lethal injection on February 12, 2014 at 8:17 p.m. at the Florida State Prison in Stark, Florida. And now for Ken's favorite thing. Although this was a horrifying tragedy, something good did come out of it. The Jimmy Ryce Act, aka the Jimmy Ryce Involuntary Civil Commitment for Sexually Violent Predators Treatment and Care Act, was passed unanimously by the Florida legislature and was signed by Governor Lawton Chiles on May 19, 1998, becoming effective January 1, 1999. The law requires that the state evaluate sex offenders before they're released from prison and keep the most dangerous confined at a treatment center. The state's Department of Children and Families reviews inmates and decides which ones to recommend for continued confinement. If prosecutors agree, they file a commitment petition in civil court, and the inmates are transferred from prison to the state's 720-bed treatment center in Arcadia, Florida, called the Florida Civil Commitment Center, while their case proceeds. It is operated by Correct Care, a private company, under a $272 million contract with the Florida Department of Children and Families. To be committed, a judge or jury must find the inmates are sexually violent predators as defined in the law, offenders who have at least one conviction for a sexually violent crime and a mental condition that makes them likely to reoffend. Once committed, predators remain at the treatment center indefinitely. They're entitled to annual reviews and are released by the courts after a finding that their mental condition has changed and they're no longer likely to commit violent sex crimes.
It's a great, great program.
It is a great program. It's a controversial program. For a time, I know most of our listeners know that I worked as a paralegal in criminal law for a long time, and we did have 2 clients who were confined to this facility and were trying to get out. And personally, I'm supposed to be working for them. I'm going to tell a personal story here. But
that had to be tough.
It was very, very hard when they would call, because I've seen their case files and I've seen what they've done. I've read every bit of it. I know exactly what they did. They're disgusting, horrible human beings. And one of the reasons that I got out of that particular field, criminal law, I went into family law for a little bit, which was actually worse, but it got to the point where I would see the name of the facility pop up on the caller ID, and sometimes I just wouldn't answer because I know that's horrible. It's horrible, but I just couldn't sit there and listen to their sob story. I'm locked up in here and they won't let me out. I did my time. And it's a controversial thing, but it's also a good thing because
sometimes it can help because it can basically just double check and make sure, hey, look, this guy's not ready to go yet.
I'm trying to think. I don't want to go into any super controversial subjects, but there's people saying that pedophilia is a sexual preference, this and that, and it's not.
Yeah, we don't feel that way here at Paradise After Dark.
But then there's people out there who believe that, and those are the type of people who are fighting against this. It's just it's a slippery slope. It's hard.
Yeah, it's one of those things you have a hard time expressing your view because you don't want to be controversial. But then again,
that's what I'm struggling with
exactly.
over here.
So you just want to keep it personal, but yet say that I'm an advocate for this particular case. But I guess it's on a case-by-case basis, honestly, if you take a look at some of these things, because I understand that there is some case-by-case situations where you have to look at that. Well, also created by the Rice family was the Jimmy Ryce Center for Victims of Predatory Abduction to offer assistance to law enforcement. Now, including they were providing free bloodhounds for use in search and rescue efforts. So when there's a search and rescue effort, you contact this program, they would help law enforcement say, look, here's some bloodhounds to help you search for this child or this missing person. Mm-hmm. Now, Jimmy Rice's mother, Claudine Diane Rice, was also the founder of Team Hope. Now, this is a group of parents of abducted children who support parents and families facing child abduction. So basically, it's basically a support group. So if your child's missing, you can contact, they have a website as well, but Team Hope is a really good organization if you're a family member of a child that's come missing.
And the holiday season's coming up, and a lot of people like to do their charitable donations during the holiday season. And the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children gets a lot during this time of year. But I encourage anyone that's thinking about donating this year. I know my birthday's coming up, and on Facebook, you can create a charity and you can have people donate for your birthday. Well, on my birthday this year, next month, is going to be for the Jimmy Ryce Center. And I encourage people to look at some of these smaller organizations that are helping just as much as the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. This like Ken's favorite thing, something good that has come out of something bad. We've got laws changed. We've got new
programs in place, support groups.
And,
well, one thing I want to bring up here and definitely, take a look. You can, that's not a bad thing to donate to. If you can donate to help out any of these programs, whether it's the Charlie Project or anything pertaining to anyone trying to help out family members or people who are attached to anything regarding crime, whether it be missing children, there's so many programs out there. So, everybody needs a little help, but these programs here do a great job. And one of the things that Claudine Rice did was put these programs together. And one of the saddest things about this whole case is that Claudine passed away in 2009. So she never got to see or witness the execution of her son's murder. She never really got that justice. She knew that he was arrested and convicted, but she never got to see it fulfilled. Now, Don Rice, which you heard in the trailer, that's Jimmy's dad.
At the very beginning, our intro, yeah.
He did attend the execution of Chavez, and he spoke to reporters shortly after. And that's the clip that you heard in the very beginning. Now, Jimmy's father, Don Rice, like I said, spoke to reporters, and this is right after 9 p.m. on Wednesday. And he says this: 19 years ago, Juan Carlos Chavez was faced with a choice. He kidnapped my son, Jimmy. He sexually assaulted him. And then it was time to decide, would he let him live or would he take his life? We know that he decided to do what he decided to do and the choice he made. As a result of that choice, he died today. This choice, unfortunately, will come up in the future in other cases when someone has committed a crime against a child, molested one, raped one, or kidnapped one. They also will be faced with the same kind of choice that Chavez was faced with so long ago. When they do, when they're processing what they think they want to do, I hope they will remember that it will be burned in their mind. 4 words. Don't kill the child. Don't kill the child, because if they do, people will not forget. They will not forgive. We will hunt you down and we will put you to death. Now, Ted Rice, he also attended. Now, this is Jimmy's older brother. He said, many people have asked why I decided to come here today. I did not come today to celebrate Juan Carlos's execution. In fact, I did not want to come. So why did I come? I came here to represent my brother Jimmy. I came here for my sister Martha and my mother Claudine. I came here today because I believe in the justice that has been served on this day, and I'm here to support that belief. I'm also here today as a symbol of strength to show you, in spite of all the terrible tragedies we've been through, my father and I still stand strong and strength is something that is sorely lacking in our country today. Many people did not believe that Juan Carlos Chavez should be put to death for this horrible crime of raping and murdering my brother Jimmy Ryce. I believe this comes from a place of weakness, not strength. It comes from not being able to face the atrocities of some men's actions and punish them on a level of commiserate with their crime. But we must be strong. We must do what it takes to send a clear message to other child predators that if they go after children, if they kill children, they will die at the executioner's hands. Today will bring no closure for my family. As my father has stated, closure does not exist. But the justice served this day after a painful 19 years will end the chapter on this part of our life, and we now look forward to moving on. Thank you. That, right? I mean, look, I can see Lawrence tearing up. That was a speech by his brother.
Yeah, it's very, very moving.
This is a very emotional thing, but again, keep that in mind what he said right there. This is not closure. Closure doesn't exist. I don't know that
you would ever get closure if you lost your child.
No parent should outlive their child. So,
all right.
Do you want to add anything to that, Lauren?
No, I don't.
So let's go ahead and end tonight's show. You okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So I guess that's it for tonight.
Again, if you'd like to support the show, please subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/Palmahawk Media. That's PALAMAHAWK Media.
And check out our website for links to our social media, Patreon, and our merch store where you can get some cool Paradise After Dark swag.
Please make sure to like and subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening and rate and review us, preferably 5 stars. This really helps us branch out and reach a wider audience.
And thank you everyone for listening
to Paradise After Dark.
Dark, 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 dark.